Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mikey on Mute. As always, I am your host, Mikey, coming off of mute to talk to you a little bit more about my mental health journey, break that stigma that reaching out for help is anything other than brave, and try to have that two-way conversation with you guys about where your mental health has brought you, and let's open up that conversation, make it less taboo to talk about mental health. Today is episode 8 in the series of Mikey on Mute. So welcome to episode 8, Love's Infinite Buffet, All You Can Feel. After self-diagnosing myself in our past episode, episode 7, I figured it was time to maybe try to learn from others. The internet wasn't always the best place to give me all the best advice. I know that's shocking. Quick disclaimer for this episode. These are my own experiences, not a one-size-fits-all definition. The things I'm going to talk about today have so many different ways to be interpreted that I ask that you do your research. I share my experience to get you through my story, but it's not an all or nothing thing. I'm not pushing a narrative one way or another. This is just the next step in my journey, the next chapter in the story of Mikey. In the past, I've always had this sense of guilt when I'm in relationships. It was weird because I had emotions, and plenty of emotions. We all have emotions each day, and especially when we're in relationships, but I had certain emotions towards other people. This isn't just your typical stereotypical guy, oh, that girl's hot or something like that. No, I had these feelings that had my inner critic giving me this look and being like, you can't feel that towards another person. If you're with somebody, if you're not partners with them, you can't do that. We're taught from a very young age, kind of one of those old things. If you love two people, they say, be with the second, I'm sorry, because you didn't love the first, actually. So I already messed it up. But if you love two people, they always tell you to go with the second because for some reason that means you didn't love the first. Now, is that toxic? That's up for debate. I think so, but also, again, this is just my experience. So, while I was battling, that, it led to a lot of things in my life where I had a lot of issues that stayed with me for a long time that I still battle to this day with comparison and seeking external validation and things like that I will touch on. But it was just, that's all I knew from past relationships. So when we got to this point, when I was looking to kind of network out and make connections with other people, I had gone through my, isolation, self-diagnosis, and now I wanted to kind of networking and get more information out. So I was out there networking, and part of the networking was on dating apps or websites, different things like that. And I came across somebody who had a certain phrase, a certain word in their profile that I had heard before, but I hadn't done the research. I only knew it from what society had taught me, what media had taught me, which ultimately was not the case in reality. We're talking today about polyamory, which combines two terms, poly meaning many, and then the Latin term for amor, or love, means many loves, broken down, term for term. It is the practice of engaging in multiple relationships, both romantically and sexually, with the consent of all the people involved. It is under the umbrella of ethical non-monogamy, or ENM, also known as consensual non-monogamy, or CNM. Now again, this definition is very fluid and is based on how it looks for you. Just because you're polyamorous doesn't mean you have to be having sexual relationships with other people. Doesn't mean you have to be having romantic relationships with other people. It can really the beauty of it is that you can customize it to what works for you and all those involved, but it has to work for everybody, meet the needs and desires and wants of the people that are involved in it. That's kind of the whole point. Now, polyamory, if you are new to this or only like I used to only know through the media and everything like that, it's different from infidelity. This is not cheating because everyone involved is aware and gives their consent. Just like every part of life, there are going to be people out there that are not following this with a moral compass, that are not having everybody's consent or not communicating everything. Don't wrap the bad apples into the entire word. I think it's a struggle that when we know somebody that maybe tried something and it didn't work out, we're afraid to look into it. But it is one of those things that caught my interest, and kind of like every time I was looking at it, it just made sense. And I wanted to put it in because it's a big part of my story as far as getting us to the point we're at now. And so what I did was on my socials, so on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, I had put out a question, and it was basically, followers who identify as part of the ethically non-monogamous community. What are some things that you wish other people knew about polyamory or E&M in general? In no particular order, here are some snippets from the followers that were nice enough to comment and give me some context on what works in their life and they wish other people knew. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Love is love. Everyone loves differently, and that's okay. It's not the same as cheating. Please do not think I'm into having affairs. Judging for how we love is still hate speech, just like the hate speech we see for people in minority groups, for the LGBTQ plus community, and others based on things they have no control over. It looks more normal than you're picturing. I think the media puts it in that it's all thruples and just this giant sex party and everything like that, but you have people that are doing household chores, that are raising families, planning fun times, and encouraging other people and each other. It's not always a sexual thing. It can be, mostly about teamwork and communication. It's not an excuse to sleep around. It's a way to include others into your, story on a deeper level than just friendship. And finally, love is not a finite resource. This is a great sentence. I always enjoyed the fact that love is not a finite resource. Kind of how I gave this episode, love's infinite buffet, all you can eat. It seemed to go with that. So again, huge thank you to my followers that took time to comment. There were others, I tried to fit in what I could. This is what I had written down when prepping for the episode, so please know I didn't miss yours on purpose. I've been trying to comment back, have those conversations with you guys. You guys are all amazing for being able to speak your terms and everything like that. So back to kind of where I was when I read this snippet in somebody's profile about polyamory, being polyamorous. The research was something interesting to me. And when I am interested in something, I hyper-focus. Is that the ADHD? Maybe. It could be. Is it the fact that my brain constantly wants to problem solve and understand how all things work, especially things that I've never been a part of? Yeah, probably as well. But suddenly what was happening as I was doing this research, things were making sense. On paper, this made so much sense to me. You can love more than one person. You already love more than one family member at a time. You can love more than one friend at a time, one or more pets, children. The examples are already there. So why do we cut it off at romantic partner? At some point, there was something put in there that said, this is all you get to do. You don't get to feel this for others. But as I'm researching, I realized that I wasn't alone in having that guilt about those past relationships, that others had felt a similar guilt, a similar point to where they weren't sure how to deal with it, and it didn't make sense until polyamory became a part of their life. So I'm sitting here and, learning how to not express wants and needs in my toxic relationships. And that led to some really bad things. So here was this new thing that made a lot of sense. And I thought, hey, this could definitely work for me. But if I was going to make this work, I needed to do something I'm not very good at. Be honest about my feelings. Polyamory has taught me lessons that are good for any relationship style, for any way that you try to love or anything like that. Asking for consent, even for something like a hug. Just making sure. Some people don't want to be hugged or touched. Some people, it might be an all the time thing or maybe that moment, but asking for consent before doing things as entering someone's personal space. This was a big one that kind of helped me understand that I was doing things based on what society thought I should. So you see this a lot with like children and asking them to give hugs and kisses, and we have to take a step back and make sure that they're okay with it as well, that it's not something we're just forcing because we think they should be doing it, because then we're just repeating that cycle. Another thing that has kind of unlocked while going through my journey with E&M and ethical non-monogamy is that jealousy is a human emotion. Jealousy is an emotion that we all feel at some point of time in different situations. And one thing I had to learn is that polyamorous people are not some kind of superheroes that suddenly figured out how to turn off jealousy. It's not some kind of switch you can flip and suddenly it's gone and you can be happy-go-lucky and no jealousy in your life at all. The trick, whether you are monogamous, polyamorous, somewhere in between, or anything like that, the trick to learning when it comes to jealousy, and it's a struggle for me to this day, is understanding the root cause. Taking the time to look at what emotions happen when you feel jealous. We've all been there. We've all felt jealousy. But taking a moment to step back and break that down, like when I am jealous, what am I feeling? Am I feeling emasculated? Am I feeling not worthy? Am I feeling like I'm not enough? Do I focus in on something physical, on something mental? Am I not smart enough? And as you take that step back and pick it apart, you can take that information and grow with it. So if you notice a lot, like I was, one of my big things is comparison. So when I get jealous, I start doing plenty of comparison. It usually starts with physical and then works, it's, with my inner critic to kind of create different things. But so understanding that when jealousy was happening, I wasn't jealous because, my partner was around somebody else or talking to somebody else or with somebody else. I was jealous because I was dealing with things that I couldn't handle. When I was learning that the reason comparison was coming up was because suddenly there was somebody else that could show her something or provide something or make her laugh. And I had to understand that I felt that I needed, I was losing control of something. Suddenly she could leave. Okay, well, this is a person. You don't own a person. We don't share people. that phrase comes up, like, I could never share my partner. First, I mean, people are not property. You don't lend out people. We stopped that a long time ago for good reason. So just understanding that, my comparison comes into, I've lost control, and now do I think that all I have to offer is being in control? Like, if somebody gets out of that, are they going to want to leave? And then am I going to start blaming that on this other person that probably had nothing to do with it? And so finding those root causes within jealousy is huge. And then working with your therapist, working with your doctor, talking to friends, talking to family, and just trying to unpack a few of those things. That helps you break apart this idea that you shouldn't be jealous, especially in an E&M or C&M situation or a polyamorous relationship. Please know that you don't have to be some stoic superhero that doesn't have jealousy. It's okay. What's not okay and what's unfair is being upset with your partner over something that is within yourself. Being mad at them for, presenting something that you didn't know was inside of you. That's not their fault. It's one thing if you guys had discussed boundaries, discussed what it looks like when you are in these situations and a line was crossed. That's a whole different subject. But it's not fair to get mad because you suddenly have feelings that you weren't ready to, deal with. It's a discussion, and you can talk to your partner and say, hey, this came up, not feeling comfortable. Can we take a step back from this? But then you have to have that conversation and find out and grow. Not, keep them from their wants and needs because you didn't have the chance to process certain things. It's kind of on you to work that out with yourself. While polyamory has brought me so many positives, and I love it, I have this very chosen family of sorts around me that we all kind of raise our different kids together. It's amazing the benefits that it's brought to my life. It has also brought some major challenges and growth opportunities. Some really big interruptions from the inner critic have come in while undergoing my polyamorous or ethical non-monogamy journey. The inner critic really likes to bring up should statements, the toxic masculinity, the comparison, the need for external validation. That all has come up very, very much in this journey. External validation is kind of like an old friend of mine. I say friend in a very loose term. External validation is something I don't want. It's something I don't want to need, but I do. I need it. It's still there. It's still this feeling of something I crave and can't get rid of. And I wish I could get rid of this old quote unquote friend that's living in me. So I was trying to figure out while going through, what does polyamory look like to me? Try to determine what it looks like on my side. Because as I said earlier, ethical non-monogamy is a huge umbrella that looks different to everybody involved. And so you can't just put it in a box and say one size fits all. That's not the case at all. One thing I wanted to do was explore more of that umbrella. What was all in it? So I understood polyamorous relationships. I had a polyamorous relationship at that time, and there were, pros and cons, and it taught me a lot about people in general. And even though it didn't work out, it still existed and gave me that experience. So, after I went through a few different experiences of that, I wanted to learn more about that E&M umbrella. What else is there? Because if I'm going to continue to learn about this, I want to find all the different opportunities to grow, to find perspective, test out the waters if possible. And so that led me to researching another part of the umbrella called swinging. So swinging, where sexual relationships, typically without romantic feelings or ties, occur outside of the established couple, of the people that are there, or outside of your normal relationship structure. Again, this definition is fluid and is defined by the parties involved and consented to. There are so many different ways to go about it and how it can look. People have different rules and boundaries and what's allowed, what's not allowed, what you're looking for, what are you seeking, what kind of wants and needs are you looking for? Is there a certain dynamic you're looking for or an opportunity? I found some groups online that were pretty local, at least in the same state, and was able to jump on there and network and meet some people. This allowed me to flirt, have conversations with people, not feel guilty, go to parties and network and really learn about what happens there, even while still in a committed relationship. That didn't stop me from being able to make these connections, and that felt great. It wasn't taking away from what I had established. It was adding in. I think a lot of people worry that with polyamory that you're taking away something from them. And ultimately, what you're looking to do is expand that love and experience. Just because you get something on one side doesn't take away from the other side. And so it was intriguing to look at this and go on this page and these different groups and have this kind of ability to post a picture and get that external validation that I was seeking constantly. I wanted somebody to find me attractive, and it wasn't because I wasn't getting it in my current relationship. I was. But it also felt great to understand that more than one person at a time can find me attractive or want to explore something with me. And that gave me the ability to lean into dynamics that I wasn't going to get in my current relationship. Again, it didn't take anything away. It wasn't reducing what was happening. It was adding in something to my life. This gave me more of an opportunity to go to a party and understand what actually happens at a lifestyle party. Again, it's one of those things that I think we only see in movies or you read about in books, and you have this preconceived idea of what happens at one of these lifestyle parties. And honestly, it is probably not what most people think. What I found when I went to these parties was I found a network of people that were able to talk to each other, become friends, express things in a safe space, talk to others that knew the same kind of desires and wants and needs and relationship styles and all of that, and there was no judgment. It was incredible to go somewhere where it was so free and liberating. And yeah, if you wanted to do the extracurriculars, there was an option for that. Obviously, there was an option for that. Separate place to go ahead and do that responsibly, but ultimately, there were a lot of people that went to these lifestyle parties mainly to network and be able to flirt and have fun and talk to other people in such a safe space and be able to be themselves in a world where we have to hide who we are in a lot of social situations. This became one that we could just exist in. I didn't know exactly what I would find in these swinging groups or at a lifestyle party or researching polyamory, going through the umbrella of ethical non-monogamy. I knew I was trying to find more of who I was. I was finding out more of what is important to me in relationships, how that can look, what are my wants and needs and my non-negotiables, what are some things that I let slide in the past that I'm not going to let slide going forward. What are those things that are important to me? Those are what I expected to find. I also expected to find a lot of fun people. I expected to find people that could fulfill certain wants and needs that were not being met elsewhere. and the ability to have fun and play and kind of explore those different things that I've never gotten to explore before. These were things that I was looking for and expected to find. But I also found something I wasn't expecting. I think it happens a lot with us when, we get into these situations. And I was just talking to my wife the other day about things like how when I get so confident about something and feel like I am understanding something fully, it feels like it's almost the complete opposite. And it's been such a weird thing. Same thing with this. I was looking for fun and excitement and a safe place to network. And while polyamory brought me a lot of things in life and still does to this day, being in ethical non-monogamy brought me so many positives. Ultimately, what I didn't look for, but what found me, was my wife. Yeah, you heard that, my wife. After I went through everything with my, past marriage and all of the different struggles I'd gone through in relationships, I went into these swinging groups looking for fun and networking and perspective, and it led me to meeting my wife, and that is a whole different story, and I am so excited to share that story with you guys. We're going to wrap up today's episode. Again, do your research on polyamory. I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert. I am just someone that's telling you how it worked for me, how it still brings joy to my life and my chosen friends and family, my chosen partners, and everything that has brought a positive outlook on how we handle things. Do your research, talk to your friends, talk to the people impacted, get consent, and really just get some perspective, even if it's not the relationship style for you. Again, I'm not pressing one way or the other. Monogamy works for people, and so does polyamory. We spend too much time thinking it has to be one or the other. Just exist. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, keep going, keep scrolling. We don't need to bash how somebody else loves or lives because it doesn't vibe with how we do. Before I give you a long list of reasons you shouldn't argue with strangers on the internet, which is something I should tell myself, this is Mikey going back on mute. Until next time.